Hello everyone! Today we will be playing Ostranauts. This is a game by Blue Bottle. Today we will be starting a new game. As you can see, the first screen is this cool little character kiosk. I really love this, love the art style. It's very Dwarf Fortress. If you've played Neo Scavenger, it will seem very familiar. Anywho, I'm just going to settle with the default name. We are Segs Browning, and we shall be... Oh, bingo. Perfect. Anywho, we're going to hit done. So here we get to the really interesting part, which is the career development. Now, as I said, it used to be that you just kind of assigned points, and that was it. Now you're actually assigned a biological father and mother, and you can go find them in space. A little bit of kind of briefing on this world before I start reading. We are a shipbreaker. We are born in space, so we suffer the kind of general defects a human born in space would have. Radiation exposure, we're unfit. We grew up in microgravity, we have a non-circadian rhythm, we're adapted to low sunlight, we've developed radiation exposure, as I already said, we are feeble, fragile, slow metabolism, micro-G velomic, which means we don't have a lot of blood circulating in us. That will be important later. Immunosuppressed, insomnia, and visually impaired. So not great, not great. But we can improve ourselves, we can work on ourselves. We're a corporate slave, basically. Like in reality, we get a mortgage and we go in debt. And that sucks. You can get a ship for free, that's one of the events. But in general, like in real life, you work as a debt slave until you're old enough to not work as a debt slave anymore. But this is obviously far more intense, and you tend to stay in debt. This is our first corporate checkup. The Ayotimwa MedTech takes a glance at our chart, then at our body, then back at our chart. Immunosuppressed, low bone density, hypervolemic, standard condition for a young spacer on K-Leg station. Born and raised as you were in weak microgravity of a 33-kilometer asteroid. The doc says the insomnia is catching up with you. It's chronic around here, something likely caused by radiation and lack of sunlight. Your eyes work well enough for now, but they're still bad and getting worse. At 18 years old, you're rapidly approaching middle age. Your muscles are feeble by Mars standards, and they wouldn't stand a chance on Earth. No shit, you say. You're no Earther, and you never will be. A heart monitor beeps, then beeps again. The board tech scribbles a few notes and grants your work permissions. Healthy enough to strip holes in a boneyard despite everything. And that's us. Obviously this isn't the end. We hit submit, but it says we're not finished. We hit OK, and then we get to this section, which is where we can actually kind of decide what we do. Now, the actual creators of the game highly recommend you seek adventure. You can work on traits and you can work on your skills, and you can remove some traits by working on your traits, and you can gain skills by working on skills, but they cost a lot of years, and that's kind of the points that you have to play with. You start off as 18 now, middle age is 30, and all of your actions in this section are really important. You want to get rid of some of your poor traits, you want to gain a lot of money, and you want to gain a lot of skills. Hacking is probably the most important skill, and it is so easy to gain in Seek Adventure. Seek Adventure costs 1 year, getting hacking as a skill costs 2 years. In any case, we're obviously going to go Seek Adventure, and I will demonstrate why. Here we are. As I said, a lot of things actually grant us hacking, so I'm not going to get hacking straight off the bat. I'm instead going to get ship maintenance. Maybe we'll read this in a moment, but that, as you can see, it grants us the shipbreaker, EVA skills, and physics, patient, finicky, and all those are beneficial for stripping ships. Mainly the EVA skills will help us work a lot faster. When all's said and done, shipbreaking, scavenging, and hustling is a grind. What was once dangerous eventually becomes monotonous. This just so happens to be the phase of your life from which, looking back, you can't remember any interesting events at all. The only thing noteworthy about this particular period of back-breaking 100-hour weeks is that what you start doing to cope. How do you deal with your boredom? And I obviously chose ship maintenance. The Birmingham 12 vacuum mobility suit has 15 major seals. Lubricate them. The helmet has its own secondary battery system. Check the indicator. But also check the physical battery, just in case, because one time you saw a false report. Re-laminate the torso, groin, and skull with radiation absorbent using a fine brush tip. Poldrian, that's the mnemonic for a user review of the suit's internal metrics, according to Ayotimwa. But once you get through it, review the balance calibration, because the mnemonic doesn't cover that for some reason. Check boot soles for microabrasions and organic detritus. Try to scrounge some cooling gel, the heatsink, and on the 12 gauge guzzles it down. Check internal fans for dust, because dust fans are to blood clots, where heart attacks are to your sudden asphyxiation. At the start of this period, you could do a full check about 8 times per free shift. Toward the end, you're up to 14. It's the kind of thing someone might have called you insane for, but it wasn't so incredibly common. In one of your more lucid moments, it occurs to you that this routine might well save your life, but it might very well destroy it too. The next step, of course, we're going to keep seeking adventure until this gets to about like 25, and then I tend to work on traits. Zhao, Zhao, Ji! A woman cries. You stop what you're doing, mouth dry. So do a dozen other day workers in the cramped dormitory. A silver-classed echo apartment in the ASC barracks. That's the signal from the next pod over. They're coming. Outside the door and across the corridor, you hear the clatter of mag boots marching in double time. A half dozen of your neighbours flee through the back doors. Moments later, you hear a series of sharp creaks and screams. Shocker rounds, you hope. You've got a moment to act. What do? I'm going to fake a pressure alarm. This is a great way to gain hacking, and you also gain genius. On some stations, hackers are monitored with the same vigilance as state-seeking nuclear capabilities back on Earth. Do they have the technology needed to perform a cyber attack? Do they have the motivation, the skills, the opportunity, the support network? This is a good example of why such precautions exist. It's the work of 10 tense seconds to isolate the corridor at the AO sector advancing down. It's 3 keystrokes to trigger a vacuum alarm. You hear the thuds and bulkhead doors close, trapping them inside. By the time the PSYOP can untangle the mess you leave behind, the raid will be neutered, by social embarrassment if by nothing else. Some of your dorm mates take advantage of the confusion and slip away, hopefully to a less populated area of the station, if such things exist in the barracks. So yes, we gain ship hacking and genius out of that, which is really good. I'm actually going to go back on what I said and immediately work on my traits. We want to get rid of microvolemic, purely because that reduces the amount of time you can operate in your pressure suits, because, you know, your blood can only circulate so much oxygen when you don't have a lot of blood. We're going to keep working on traits, because I also want to get rid of unfit. That's the only other trait I'm going to absolutely get rid of. It's expensive to get rid of it, but you need to sleep so much if you're unfit in this game, and it takes away a lot of your time, because a lot of the time you don't have a bed. You can just sleep on a chair, and that's it. In any sense, we are going to go seek adventure. While drinking at the local watering hole after your shift, you see a unicorn. They're the Sikron Ayatimwa executive, sneaking out to rub shoulders and bump uglies with the common folk. You wince as they try to pay for their round in yarn. It's dollars for the likes of us, friend. If you're careful and lucky, this could be an opportunity. And indeed it will, because I can hack them. Now, this isn't great. It gains you a enemy, bingo, but you also get a shit ton of money, so I always do it. The password is Rosebud. You choke on that. You choke on the drink you're nursing. Well, at least it wasn't password. You remotely clone the contents of the upload into the station's dark web for sale. Even as you sit there, strapped to your stool, perhaps 15 minutes later, the scrawn takes a phone call, then leaves looking as nervous as it's possible to look, while roughly sourced. Their routine organizes a speedy retreat. You grin into the nozzle of your water skin. It shouldn't be this easy. So yes, he doesn't like us anymore. Oh well, don't care. Next. Seek adventure. Shady deal. See, if we had Streetwise, we could actually join them for this. Damn shame. In any sense, we shall gather intel for cops. It's not the best thing to do, but you gain a friend in law enforcement, which is good. You are approached by a co-worker who's deployed less than lethal method of making cash on the side. Apparently, they've been tagging high-value salvage as junk in the system for at least 6 weeks. After the false tag, they leave to part on board the derelict and sell the location to the highest bidder. This scheme always involves the complexity of the breaker doing the final sweep, and today that happens to be you. The piece in question is a busted reactor, and you know it will fetch a pretty penny on the black market. It's a big risk if you can pull it off, but there are risks. I'm just going to gather intel for the cops. You decline the offer and keep an eye on the involved parties. It's a good scheme, runs like clockwork. After a couple of weeks you know the names, locations, and timings. You bring this intel to an AOSEC officer, they're shocked by the level of detail. It's not a career case, but close enough. Now you have a friend on the force, plus some valuable information to boot. I'm going to keep going. I've gotten most of what I want to get, but let's keep moving. Obviously, you can review your resume. As you can see, we're currently a young adult. We're a genius, we're patient, we're still immunosuppressed, we're still visually impaired, we're ambitious, we're honest, we're still feeble, still an insomniac, we're finicky, observant, and we're still fragile, and with a slow metabolism. Now, slow metabolism isn't bad. It actually means you need less food. but it also means you take longer to absorb your food. So it has its pros, it has its cons. It also means you heal a little slower, but you know, you bite the bullet. What I'm going to do is I am going to get rid of Fragile. Fragile is not a great trait. It makes you very vulnerable in combat, and you're already pretty vulnerable in combat, as the combat system still needs a rework. And then I'll probably seek adventure, and the rest will just be trying to find a good ship. I like to be middle-aged when I leave. Some people prefer to be young, but honestly, this game gets updated relatively frequently, and every time it does get updated, it invalidates your save, so there's really no point in being young. Yet, there will be in the future, but for now, being middle-aged is a-okay. This is a good one. We can abandon ship, we'll get fined for that. We can jerry-rig, we'll get fined for that. We can hack, and we'll get fined for that. And I'm not sure what take the stick means, but it might mean pilot it. Again, you're not in control, so not a good idea. Best thing to do here is to troubleshoot the engine, which I always do. Midway through salvaging yet another hulk, the cockpit of your allocated salvage pod lights up with red telltales. Suddenly you're under thrust, and one of the engines sends you spiraling away from the hulk back into the orbit of the black. It's unresponsive, and nobody has the fuel to come save you. You're expendable. If you want to live, it's up to you. Now, hacking the engine here is obviously a good way to gain hacking skill, but I'm going to troubleshoot the engine. This gains us skilled in spaceship piloting, it continues the shipbreaker career, and it gains us 850 because we get a bonus. Oh, this is a known issue on the Minshay Alpha series. You've just got to reroute power through the auxiliary breakers to trigger an interrupt request from the thrust control module, at the same time as you hit the manufacturer's security keys, and yep, simple. Luckily this happened to you and not someone else who might have been in serious trouble. Your manager is impressed you escaped without damaging the rig. In a rare display of generosity, they offer you a bonus of your weekly pay. Awesome. Okay, so now we're just going to go looking for a ship. Future Digital Helix here. The rest of the video has been cut because I chose a really poor ship, and I will, in the future, make a short where I will go through the best ships to choose and the reasons why. Thanks for watching.